Hello and welcome to Beach View, our podcast about different things and/or stuff.
Yes, hello. Today we're going to be going over current viewings. We haven't done this in a while.
Yep.
So I was interested to see, what we've both been into recently.
Yeah, so what have you been into recently?
So, well, I've read, a few books, I watched a few shows, but today I figured I would talk about White Lotus. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, it's a TV show.
Yes, it's a TV show, and I'm a little late to the game. I feel like people have been talking about it for a while, and I was like, oh, let me see. So, of course, I had to get someone's login and and watch it myself. So, and by that I mean I paid for a login. I'm just kidding. But anyways, no. So I decided to take a gander because I know season 2 came out. And I was like, well, let me start with season 1. So, have you seen it at all?
No, I'm not familiar with what it is other than that it's a TV show.
Okay, yeah. So, I wasn't either. I didn't know what it was about, but I just and I didn't really hear people I know talking about it, but it was more online. I saw a lot of stuff about it online. So, I was like, let me see what this is all about. And then when I would ask people hey, have you ever watched White Lotus? They're like, yeah, it was good. So I was like, okay, I didn't really have an inkling about what it was. So let me get into this. So I watched seasons 1 and 2, and they're pretty short seasons, but definitely interesting shows. So I guess I'll just get right into it. White Lotus was created by Mike White, and he is credited to just bringing this really interesting story to life. And so, for those of you who don't know, in this show, White Lotus is a resort. So it's basically a chain of resorts that they have in different cities around the world. And season 1 starts with White Lotus in Hawaii. So you're immediately introduced to all the characters. I'll just give a brief synopsis. I'll try to be brief because there's a lot going on in these shows, okay? There's a lot of different characters. But basically, so in general, to me, this show is okay, so it's about the staffers and the guests at this resort. So it's a few different dynamics and character groups, but it's kind of about how they all interact basically. And to me, it's about give and take in relationships. It's kind of considered a dark melodrama. I say dark because it explores the dark side of human nature, but it's also kind of a satire about privilege and classes. So obviously the people who are staying at the White Lotus are more privileged, have higher income, and then you see the guests who are staying there versus the staff and that lifestyle. So it's I think it's more a satire because it's really outrageous kind of stuff. So as you get into it, it gets more and more outrageous. So that's what makes it, I think, interesting, because at first you're just kind of seeing how people interact in these, I said, different character groups and how they're interacting in their relationships, and then it all kind of spirals out of control. So that's what's kind of interesting and kind of funny about it, but also, like I said, dark. So it starts off you're in this Hawaiian resort, and it's a very nice resort, and they start off the very first, I think the first scene, is at the airport, and it's at the end of the trip for some of these guests, okay? And they talk about, this one guest is talking to this couple, and he's obviously, agitated and doesn't want to talk. And they're like, oh, we heard a guest died there. And he's like, yeah, they're actually loading the body onto the plane. So right from the start that somebody dies, but you don't know who it is. So the whole thing is going through, and you're trying to figure out, okay, who's dying here? So anyway, so they're talking about a death in the body, and then it shifts to when all the guests are arriving on the island and at the resort. So It's really funny. Like Armand is the manager of the resort, and he's just kind of this like goofy character from the start, and then he is the one that just kind of, you know, gets crazier and crazier. So he, like, we find out that he is like, he's sober, and he gets real stressed out because of the guest and some different mistakes that happen, and he just continues to spiral into alcohol and drug use, and it just kind of follows that whole but it's in like a outlandish kind of way. It's not like depressing, it's more like, this dude's nuts, you know. So it's kind of funny. And then you have this couple, a young couple that's on their honeymoon, and I think the realization of the wife that she's actually a trophy wife, like she married into money, and she wasn't thinking that way, but like because of a series of events, like she realizes like, oh, like he married me because I'm a trophy wife, and he doesn't want me to work and have my own income. Like he just wants me to like, you know, be a socialized, you know, member of society, you know, kind of thing. So she's kind of going through that in her head. And then there's a family with kids, and the mom is like this CEO or CFO or something, I don't even remember, of this big company, and like the dad feels kind of emasculated, and and then there's two kids, and the girl, a teenager, like brings her friend. There's this whole dynamic with them. So anyway, I'm not gonna go through every single one, but the funniest character is Jennifer Coolidge plays Tanya, and she's, I don't know if, do you know Jennifer Coolidge?
No.
Okay, so she was like, she became famous like I think in the early 2000s, late 90s, and she played like Stifler's mom in American Pie and like these other like real popular movies and stuff. And so she made like a career comeback now on this show, and everybody just absolutely loves her. In fact, like for Mardi Gras recently, they had a whole, in New Orleans, they had a whole, like, crew who was dressed like Jennifer Coolidge from The White Lotus. So it's like this whole, like, kind of campy following now. Everybody loves Tanya, the character that Jennifer Coolidge plays. So anyway, she's just like this rich, kind of like, you know, mentally unstable lady, like, and she's just, like, really funny. So it kind of goes through there. Anyway, so the whole season culminates with somebody dying, and I won't say who, but you're trying to figure out who it is, and like just like watching all this stuff unfold. Everybody's just kind of like being at their worst behavior, you know, and it's just very interesting. So that was season 1 in a nutshell. Do you have any questions about that?
Not particularly, no.
Does it sound like something you would want to watch?
Probably not, but I mean, you know, like you, I've heard stuff about it online, and like,
yeah,
apparently the writing's really good, so.
Yeah, it's surprisingly addictive. Like, it's just like, I think it's a funny, like, and I don't know that it's like supposed to be funny, but you're like, these people are so ridiculous. Like, it's like you can't stop watching it. But so season 2 gets into, they're at the White Lotus Resort in Sicily, and there's carryover character is Jennifer Coolidge's character, Tanya, and her husband that she met at the White Lotus Hawaii in the first season. But we quickly see that like her relationship like isn't as, you know, beautiful as it seems, because her husband, Greg, he had this like illness in the first season. He's like basically thinks he's dying. And so he like immediately kind of starts a relationship with her, even though he knows she's like very clingy, like emotionally just kind of out there. And so we see in the second season, like quickly that he's like real aggravated with her, and she's like, you know, are you gonna leave me? Like all this stuff. So we see that there's some problems, you know, from the start. Well, she shows up with her assistant, Portia, and he's like real aggravated that she brought Portia. And there's just like some real questions about him and his motives, because he like leaves all of a sudden. She overhears him on the phone like saying, oh, she has no idea. So she thinks like he's having an affair. She sees like a psychic about it. Anyway, like all this stuff. Well, the Sicilian cast is, again, it goes like the staff versus the guests and kind of like how they all interact. There's like these two Sicilian girls, Lucia and Mia, and they're basically like prostitutes. And so we see them like interacting with different guests, one of whom is a sweet guy named Albie. He's like a real kind of innocent, like young guy. He ends up getting conned by one of the prostitutes. And even though his dad, like he's there with his dad and his grandpa's like this dirty old man. And his dad is like this womanizer kind of guy. And his dad sees that he's getting conned, but they're like rich. He asks his dad for money to give to the prostitute because she's trying to escape that life. And his dad knows like he's getting conned, but he's just like, whatever, if this, this is what you need, here's the money. So it's just like, again, like about the different classes and that kind of thing. There's also these two couples that go, and we clearly see from the start that there's some like issues with these couples. Like they kind of don't understand each other. Like the two guys are friends and their wives like don't really have anything in common. And anyway, we see one relationship like we think is going to fall apart. They're playing games with each other. One relationship seems like super perfect, but we quickly learn that like the dude like cheats on her all the time. And like, anyway, they just kind of play these games with each other. And by the end of it, they're all, come back together and they're all fine. But we also see some deaths, more than one. And again, the season starts off with, at the very beginning, we see like one of the characters is like going in the water. It's this beautiful view of the Sicilian coastline. And we see the guest in the water and like she feels like a body float up next to her. And then they say, like the resort manager says like, oh, several guests, or there's several bodies were found. So you're like, oh, who's gonna die, So, spoiler alert, at the end, Tanya, Jennifer Coolidge's character, ends up on this like little yacht with this group of guys. And come to find out, we figure out, thanks to her assistant Portia, who they tried to distract with another guy, but she figures all this stuff out, that Greg, the husband, actually like set all of this up because he wanted to kill his wife and get the money from her. So, because she's this rich lady and he wanted to kill her, he's tired of her, all this stuff. So they're on this boat where somebody is supposed to be killing her. And she ends up like figuring it out. She can't escape because they're on a boat in the middle of the water. But yeah. She ends up like killing all the people. And like she tries to get off the boat onto the little boat to go back to land. And in doing so, she falls and hits her head and ends up dying herself. But it was like such an end for her character. Like it was very fitting because it was like she escaped like this whole conspiracy of trying to kill her, but she ends up dying herself from like a clumsy accident. So it's just a very interesting season. And it's got that kind of comedy to it, but also like these people are incredibly dysfunctional, and that's why it's funny because like it's like you can see how all these characters interact, and they're just like all have these like dysfunctions that it's just kind of like, dude, people are just ridiculous. So anyway, again, there's like drug use, alcohol abuse, prostitutes, like whatever. But it's all done in a way that's like just like interesting and like keeps you hooked, So gotta credit Mike White for that. I think he does an incredible job. So there you go.
There's only 2 seasons so far?
Yes, only 2 seasons so far. I will continue watching when they come out with new seasons. But it's such an interesting, like, following different groups and, like, all of their problems and issues and just thinking about how ridiculous all these people are. There's a lot more, obviously, to it, but yeah. I didn't want to go on and on and on. So, basically, that is White Lotus in a nutshell. Highly recommend it. I think it's good. And there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, my current viewings is all music. I listened to quite a bit of music in the past few weeks.
Oh.
So, first is Paramore's new album, This Is Why,
Oh, how
which
is it?
came out a few weeks ago. Yeah, so this is their first album in like 6 years?
Wow.
Or something like that. Hayley Williams did some solo albums, which for whatever reason I never got around to listening to. Also never got around to listening to their last album. So the last album by them I listened to is from like 2013.
Oh, goodness. So it has been a while.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's okay, I guess.
Aw, that stinks.
I feel like I should like it more than I did. Like, it's, musically, it's in a genre that, like, I do like, usually, so it's weird that I'm, like, I listened to it and I was like, this is okay, I guess.
Really? Aw.
Yeah.
I hate to be disappointed by stuff like that.
Well,
know?
I mean, I didn't know this was coming out until it was,
Yeah.
like, already out. Like, I saw some people talking about it and it's like, oh, they releasing a new album. I guess I'll listen
So
to
it
that.
wasn't that much of a letdown because you weren't, like,
No.
anticipating it?
No, yeah. It's just like, I don't know. I should like this more than I do. I mean, yeah, I don't know what it is. I guess part of it's, like, even though I'm not big on lyrics, some of the lyrics in these songs are bad, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
would
know.
not have guessed that.
I mean, I don't know that Paramore's ever been known specifically for their lyrics, but there's just a lot of these felt really weak to me.
Oh, that's such a letdown.
Yeah, maybe that's just me, though. I don't know. I haven't really kept up with the response to this.
Oh.
Because I know this is like probably a big deal, seeing as it's their first album in 6 years or something like that.
So, do you feel like the sound has changed, or
Yes,
is it
no,
more just like, okay.
It is, well, I mean, because Paramore, they were like doing pop punk stuff, a little bit of like
Yeah.
emo stuff, a little bit of like alt rock for their first 3 albums, and then there was a big break and they came back with a new album that was like, it was doing a lot of different things. There's a lot of different like subgenres in that album.
Yeah.
And then their next album after that was like a synth pop thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I didn't listen to it, so.
You didn't. You have to go back and listen to that one.
I don't like synth pop, that's why I never listened to it. I listened to the
okay.
singles and I was like, this isn't for me.
You're like, nah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then this one, which is more of a like, sort of, it's more rock stuff, but it's a different like rock subgenre. It's not like doing their old school pop punk stuff.
Yeah. That's disappointing.
Yeah, and again, like, I usually like this genre, so I don't know why I wasn't so high on this album.
Well, it happens.
Yeah.
That's a bummer, though.
Not really.
Not that invested in it.
No. I mean, I really like their first 3 albums, but, they're not the kind of band where I'm like, oh, this next album has to be good, or else I'm gonna be severely disappointed.
I know. Well, it's like, I used to really love, like, Stained and Aaron Lewis, and then, like, he went country, and I was just like, no, I can't. But it's just like you hate when you, like, you really enjoy something, and then it's, like, just kind of, like, not for you anymore,
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's not actually the case here, because this is definitely, like, a for-me album, I think. I don't know, I didn't like it.
Just weren't, you just weren't feeling it right now,
Yeah, I mean, maybe if I listen to it again, I'll like it better, because I have definitely had that happen with albums.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, it's like the first go around is like, let me see what this is about, and then like when you listen to it again, you're like, okay, I can get down with this,
Yeah, but I haven't listened to it again, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to revisit it if you do listen to it again. See how you feel about it.
It wasn't all bad. I just wasn't too high on it. But yeah, that's that album. Then I listened to another album, which is Death Cab for Cutie's Asphalt Meadows. This came out in fall or winter of 2022, and I just now got around to listening to it.
Oh, really? How
Yeah.
was it?
So yeah, there's a bit of build up for this.
Oh.
So yeah, Death Cab for Cutie's probably one of my favorite bands, I'd say. Like
Yeah.
yeah. The thing with them though is that I think like they are past their prime, and they are like well past their prime. Like I think
Really?
everything they've put out since 2005 has been like lacking from their previous stuff, which is a long time ago. I mean,
No.
notice like in music terms that like I think everything they put out for the past like 18 years just doesn't quite hold a candle to their old stuff.
Oh man, I hate that.
Now, despite that, I think I like most of their work post 2005.
Okay.
Like, even if it's, I think, a lesser version of what they were doing before, I still like it. Like,
It's
I still
still
think it's
good.
good. Yeah. With the exception of their 2015 album, which I thought was bad. And it was, like, a big deal because it was their last album with one of the longtime members and their producer. Like, he's the,
Yeah.
you know, he was also their producer. And so, you know, there's, like, a big deal of it, that this was the last album with him, and I thought the singles were good before the album came out, and then every other song on that album, I was like, oh,
No.
yeah,
Terrible.
yeah. Yeah, so then after that, 3 years later in 2018, they released a new album, and I had, like, you know, I wasn't expecting anything, because I didn't like the last one, and this was, like, you know, they changed the members a bit.
Yeah.
But I was, like, really surprised with it, because I really liked it. I thought it was, like, a really cohesive album, and I thought, like, the sound they were going for was really good. So, you know, that was, like, it's like, oh, I didn't expect anything here, and it turned out surprisingly well.
Oh,
So
man.
I was kind of looking forward to this album, which
Yeah.
actually I didn't like. I don't keep up with new music as well as I should. So, like, you know, I'm listening to this several months after the fact, wasn't even aware that it had released.
Oh no.
But yeah, so then this album came out in 2022, and I thought at first, you know, like the first two songs I really liked, and then the rest of the album was kinda
Lackluster.
Yeah.
Oh no.
This one I can actually pin down, though, because it's like, it's not actually that dissimilar from their previous album, which I liked a lot. But the things I think that are different about it are what really sink it for me.
Really?
I don't think any of it's bad. Like, I think their 2015 album's bad,
Oh.
but it's just the decisions they made. Like, their 2018 album went for sort of a kind of synth influence sound.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like synths and like electronic percussion in there along with the guitar stuff, and I really like sort of the like I like that sound a lot. And this one went for more of like an adult contemporary sound, so there's a
Okay.
lot like it's less tight to me, and there's a lot more like kind of belting over like mid-tempo guitar riffs and stuff, and it's just kind of all of it's kind of like a mid-tempo sort of like slodge of
Slodge.
a thing. Like I don't really like that sort of adult contemporary sound.
No? Okay.
Yeah, it's not as focused to me as their previous album was. So, yeah.
Do you think I would like it?
You might. I don't know. I mean,
have to try it. So I'm sure I've mentioned this, but I've been rewatching very slowly The OC. I feel like I'm always rewatching The OC, but
yeah.
it's just, because I only like watch an episode every once in a while. But I've been rewatching it, and so like, you know, all these like kind of pop punk bands are featured, and of course like Death Cab is Seth Cohen's his character, his favorite band. So it's like I'm kind of like back into that like the punk scene, you know. So I'm just like kind of disappointed to hear this, but I'm gonna try it. I didn't even know they had an album in 2022 either, so I'm gonna try it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the OC's from like what, the early 2000s?
Yeah, early 2000s, which
Yeah,
I love, like all the early 2000s fashion and stuff, so I'm all about it.
Yeah, this is Death Cab for Cutie 20 years after the fact, so...
Yes, I definitely want to listen to it. I was about to say watch it. I want to listen to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, Like, honestly, if you want to listen to Death Cab for Cutie, I would recommend some of their other albums, but,
Yeah.
you might like this one.
I just want to see if I like it or not.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like, when you don't like something, I'm like, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad album. I just wasn't a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
Aside from the first two songs, which I was, I really liked.
That's good. At least you like something on it.
Yeah. And my final music thing is a song. So, 100 gecs released a new single called Hollywood Baby.
Oh.
And it's just a song from 2007.
Really?
It sounds just like a pop punk song from that era. Like, it is...
Wait, in a good way or a bad way?
Yes, yeah, I like the song.
Okay.
But it's like, the one thing is that those vocal effects that are, like, signature to 100 gecs sound weren't, like, super popular in pop punk at the time, but the 2000s were the era of auto-tune, so they're not, like,
Yeah.
That's not a, unfamiliar.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I was listening to it and I was like, yeah, this just sounds straight out of 2007.
I love it.
Yeah, and they've got a new album coming out later this year, so
nice.
I think I'm expecting it to be to be just basically what if a 2007 pop punk album with maybe a bit more vocal effects.
Okay. That's cool though.
Yeah.
So that's your current viewings are all
that's 3
current
music
listenings.
thing. Yep.
Very nice.
Yeah, I liked one of them, the one song, and then the other two I was not too high on, so.
You're like, nah, I'll pass on that.
Yep.
Well, you'll have to see how the new album... Do you know when the new album's coming out?
In March, I believe. I don't know
In
the
March,
date.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to see how that one is.
Yep.
Whether it's good or not. Highly anticipated album coming out.
that's probably the most new albums I've listened to. There's 2 in a while. So
really?
yeah, because I think I listened to 1 like new album, or no, 2 the whole year last year.
Yeah, I hardly ever listen to new albums. I don't know why. But it's like I'll think like, oh, I gotta listen to that. Like I'll know when something's coming out, and I'm like, I gotta listen to that, and then like I never do. But I did. So speaking of some older bands releasing new things, I just heard yesterday Linkin Park's new release. It was a single. Did you hear about that one?
No, I didn't.
Oh, so I think it's called. Hold on, let me look this up real quick. I want to say it's called Lost, but let me see. Yeah. So there's a new Linkin Park song called Lost, and it was recorded when they recorded Meteora.
Oh,
and yeah, so they just released it. It sounds very similar to some of the other songs, obviously, during that time. But it was good. I liked it. They said there's a lot more where that came from too. Like there's some songs that they never released that just, didn't make the cut for the album that I think they're probably going to be releasing some more. So I was interested to hear that. Yeah. So it's good. I would give it a listen. It's very similar to some of the other songs. So like very similar sound.
Oh, okay.
Which is probably why it didn't get on the album,
Yeah, I think maybe it's from a 20th anniversary, like, re-release of Meteora.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because, wow, that was 20 years ago. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I think they did the same thing for Hybrid Theory. They, like, released some previously unreleased stuff for their 20th anniversary.
Ah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Well, I like when bands do that. Like, I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess it's not a new single so much as a
newly
previously
released.
unreleased. Yeah.
Yeah, newly released, yeah. So I like that. It kind of gives you like a little special treat.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But I mean, I think when you said new song, I was like, oh, are they gonna continue the
Oh
band
yeah,
after like what
no.
happened? But
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah, I think I said it's the right way to say it. Newly released.
yeah,
That was recorded 20 years ago. So
yeah,
I think that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to give that a listen. And surprisingly, I've been like listening to Taylor Swift's like Midnights every once in a while too. Like, and because I think I've shared. I'm not like Taylor has a new album. Let me go listen. Like, I'm not like that kind of fan. But I really like the sound of Midnights. Like, I think it's like a whole vibe. So like every once in a while, I'll go like re-listen. So Brenna would be proud.
I take that back. I've listened to 3 albums last year.
Oh. Yeah, that's right, because we did the podcast about it.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Speaking of more current viewings, I've been on like a TV series kick, and of course, like I'm always, an avid reader. So I just read the book You, which I think I talked about that series before. I can't remember.
You have, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, so like he's basically a serial killer, but kind of like an accidental serial killer kind of guy. But I just read the book that it was based on, and I gotta say, I was like ready for it to be done. I felt like, I don't know, it's because I already watched the series and like know what happened, but it was kind of dragged out, and I was just like, okay, but the book was very much like the series, so I think they did a really good adaptation of it. With like the dialogue is kind of rambling, like psychopathic, inside the killer's mind, basically. But I think it just wasn't like I don't want to read the second book. Like I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm like I think I'm done with this one now. Really well written, but I just felt like it was really dragged out. But like I said, it did make me think that the adaptation was really well done. So bravo to that series. And good book. I think like the premise was good, but and it was, this guy who keeps killing people, but it wasn't like scary to me. Like I don't like to read a lot about serial killers because it's just really creepy, but this wasn't that way. So I gotta give it props for that.
All right. Well.
Yeah. So that's my other current viewing. I just finished it yesterday.
Yeah. So, I guess that's been our current viewings.
Yeah. So, I'll take us out.
Yeah.
So, this has been Beach View, another current viewings on our podcast about all sorts of things and stuff. So, join us next time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.